Greetings. I am Patrick Jerome, and this is lesson number 5 in my series on fact-based astrology. Today's topic is Gauquelin Jupiter. Imagine that there's a big race with the 4 Gauquelin planets as contestants. Mars is there to win. The Moon is there because his friends are there. Saturn is carrying a little notebook into which he will record his time, his pulse rate, and the temperature and humidity. And here is what is going through Jupiter's mind. I want to win, of course. And if I do, that's great, because everyone loves a winner. But if I lose, I can still win by making friends with the winner, or by making jokes about how slow I am, or by telling inside stories about the race, or by organizing a dinner for everyone who participated. Thus, to be a winner, all I really need is to enter the race. After that, I can use my people skills to make the best out of whatever happens. Got it? If I play my cards right, I will win no matter what happens. That's Jupiter. To succeed with this approach, you can't be too intensely focused on any one thing. You have to be loose, flexible, quick thinking, spontaneous, friendly, amiable, open to both people and events, ready for anything. As I said last time, Jupiter, like Mars and Saturn, is a timetable, is a timeline planet. It is a resume building planet. It is oriented to worldly success, but its strategy for achieving that success is different from Mars or Saturn. Mars is the aggressive professional, Jupiter is the extroverted professional, and Saturn is the introverted professional. In their studies, the Gauquelins got the following results. Jupiter was high with actors, journalists, politicians, businessmen, and military leaders. Jupiter was low with doctors and scientists. Let's start with the professions that are low. What do doctors and scientists have in common? They delay gratification. They set a goal that involves years of difficult study, discipline themselves to achieve that goal, and eventually become experts who coordinate their work with other experts. They are the ant, they are the bee, and they are the opposite of Jupiter. Jupiter is the grasshopper, Jupiter is the butterfly. Jupiter is Tom Sawyer tricking his friends into whitewashing the fence, but doing it in a spirit of fun so that in the end, everyone laughs with him. Does that mean that there are no Jupiter doctors or scientists? No. Einstein had a Gauquelin Jupiter. So did Tesla. But neither Einstein nor Tesla was your typical scientist. They were big picture thinkers and not narrowly focused specialists. Here is a quote from a review of Tesla, inventor of the electrical age, by W. Bernard Carlson. The emphasis is added by me to highlight Jupiterian qualities. Tesla was an astute self-promoter and gifted showman who cultivated a memorable and dramatic public image. What escaped Tesla was the need to do the nuts and bolts engineering. Got it? Tesla was a self-promoter, businessman and journalist high, a showman, actors high, who cultivated a dramatic public image, doctor, actor, politician, and journalist high, but was lacking in the nuts and bolts of engineering. Doctor and scientist low. Take note that the presence of Tesla and Einstein at the opposite end of a statistical trend is a reminder that Gauquelin's findings are indicators of temperament and not profession or talent. From my keyword studies, the following traits were associated with Jupiter: warm, lively, stylish, ambitious. For those of you who remember the Mars data, you will doubtlessly note that there is a significant overlap. Both Mars and Jupiter have the following items high. In the professions, businessmen and military leaders. And in the keywords, lively and ambitious. You probably also noted that while doctors were high for Mars, they were low for Jupiter. Thus, although there are similarities, there are also differences. And I'll speak to that in a moment, but first I need to give a little background. In my astrological studies, I make use of 20 keywords, 14 of which are based on the Gauquelin data and 6 my own studies. And since all 20 have opposites, there are actually 40. And in my efforts to understand personality, I use those 40 in all sorts of combinations. And one set of combinations involves keyword pairs. There are 760 keyword pairs, for which I have created 760 energy images, all based on statistical and anecdotal data. I'm bringing this up now because these images are helpful in understanding the similarities and differences between Mars and Jupiter. Later on, I'll be devoting at least one lecture to planetary combinations, but for now, let's concentrate on Mars and Jupiter. As I do this, don't get hung up on the literal nature of the image. Instead, pay attention to its feeling tone. Both Mars and Jupiter. The images are a ball of fire, a tiger striding through the jungle, a captain leading the troops, and using personal force to attain worldly goals. Got it. When Mars and Jupiter combine, there is ambition, leadership, and charisma. Let's go back to the timeline for a second. Mars is the aggressive planet, Jupiter is the extroverted planet, and when they're together, you have an aggressive, extroverted professional. You have a ball of fire, you have a captain leading the troops. Now, look at Jupiter when it's separate from Mars. The images are a dog with a wagging tail, a teenager making his friends laugh, a salesman exchanging jokes with a client, a friendly traveler making a memorable first impression, and a charismatic speaker. Breathe it in. When Jupiter is with Mars, it's a tiger. When it's without Mars, it's a dog with a wagging tail. Big difference. Remember, Jupiter is flexible. Yeah, it has certain qualities: warmth, friendliness, a lively personality. But how those qualities manifest depends upon the situation. Jupiter summons force when force is required, diplomacy when diplomacy is required, humor when humor is required, and solemnity when solemnity is required. It's an actor, get it? It's a politician. It is capable of donning a variety of masks. But it's not phony or hypocritical any more than a chameleon changing colors is phony or hypocritical. The solar system was organized in a certain way. Human nature reflects that organization, and Jupiter has its role to play. Jupiter people are likable, and they're friendly, and they're easygoing, spontaneous, and fun to be around. There's a light that shines off of them. There's a glow. Here are some examples of people who have the glow. Bear in mind, I am not showing them to prove a point, but to illustrate one. And believe me, I could show you Jupiter people I know personally who have a similar glow. There's something about them. You instantly like them. You want to be around them. And it isn't just you. A lot of people want to be around them. They have star power. Not all Jupiter people have the glow, mind you, but a solid 40% do, compared to 16% of the population as a whole. There are as many stars with Gauquelin Jupiter as there are ego bastards with Gauquelin Mars. We've got Jennifer Aniston and Goldie Hawn, Stevie Nicks and Diana Ross, Mickey Mantle and Tom Brady, Paul Newman and Robert Redford, Clark Gable and George Clooney, Elvis Presley and Evel Knievel, and Barack Obama and Ronald Reagan. It's no coincidence that Barack Obama and Ronald Reagan are both Jupiter people. They're the two most beloved presidents in the past 50 years. Yes, they're also hated, but that's not astrology, that's politics. To grok the astrology part, a good place to start is with their speaking ability. They're both tremendous speakers. They woo with their words, they seduce with their voice. They move you, they inspire you. And because of this, they are loved in ways that far exceed their accomplishments. Let me be clear, I'm not here to criticize or defend either one of them. I'm here to explain Jupiter, and the point is both Reagan and Obama have the glow. Just like Jennifer Aniston and Goldie Hawn, just like Mickey Mantle. That's Jupiter, by which I mean it's sometimes Jupiter. It's Jupiter at its most appealing. So appealing indeed that it's easy to project our feelings onto them. And it isn't just feelings, it's our hopes and our dreams. You meet a Jupiter woman and she's so wonderful you think, I'm in love. But 5 minutes later you spot her flirting with some other guy, and the guy is an idiot. That's Jupiter. When I was teaching at Job Corps, there was a Jupiter student who strutted around the classroom like a peacock. He'd lean over a girl's desk and say, "Hey, baby." Without even looking up, the girl would say, "Get lost." But it didn't faze him. He'd walk up to another girl, lean over and say, "Hey, baby." And she'd also say, "Get lost." And it still didn't faze him. He'd head for a third girl, lean over and say, "Hey, baby." And she'd look up and say, "Hey, baby," to you. And for 2 whole days, they'd be an item. That's Jupiter. Go after what you want, be charming, and treat your failures as water off a duck's back. Check out the fashionable way Stevie Nicks and Diana Ross are dressed. Jupiter people like to be fashionable, not just in clothes, but in books, and films, and ideas. I once had a Jupiter girlfriend who was disgusted with me because in her eyes, I was too old-fashioned. Me? Old-fashioned? It pissed me off. What she meant was that I liked 19th century books and art. She, by contrast, was always reading the latest book, watching the hottest new TV show, and attending lectures by this or that exciting new guru. She was in fashion, or trying to be, and it peeved her to have a boyfriend who was so out of step. That's Jupiter. Notice also the outlandish costumes Elvis Presley and Evel Knievel are wearing. Going overboard is also a Jupiter trait, not just in clothes, but in everything. Picture Howard Cosell with his big words, his name dropping, and his bombastic style. Don't get me wrong, I loved Howard, but a lot of people found his shtick wearying. That's Jupiter. And there's crooked businessmen John DeLorean and Kenneth Lay. Remember the DeLorean car with its snazzy door? Very flamboyant, very flashy. That's Jupiter. The problem is, it had zero functional value. And the way DeLorean cheated his investors was also Jupiter, by which I mean it's the dark side of Jupiter. And the same goes for Kenneth Lay and his Enron scam. Jupiter people want to be big. And they often are big in a good way. But even when they aren't big, they still want to be. And it causes problems. At Job Corps, there was a Jupiter teacher. She was a great teacher. The students loved her. They flocked around her like ducklings flocking around Mama Duck. But man, did that woman feel entitled. She came to work late every single day. And she left early whenever she could get away with it. And during lunch in the break room, she talked constantly. And if anyone else attempted to speak, she'd interrupt them in the middle of a sentence. She was the queen, you see, just like Elvis was the king. That's Jupiter. How common is this, you ask? How often do Jupiter people go overboard? Around 40% of the time, whereas in non-Jupiter people it happens less than half as often. And it's in the symbols. Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system. It's composed entirely of gas, and it has 67 known moons. Here's a picture of Jupiter compared to the Earth, and here's a picture of some of Jupiter's moons compared to the Earth. And there's another moon less than 2 miles wide. But despite its size, Jupiter spins very fast, 2.5 times faster than the Earth, which means that one day on Jupiter takes only about 10 Earth hours. One of Jupiter's moons, Callisto, takes 46 Earth years to make its journey around Jupiter, whereas another moon, Amalthea, makes the journey in 12 hours. 46 years compared to 12 hours. Amazing. What symbolic meaning can we squeeze out of these facts? 1. Jupiter is big. And Jupiter people want to be big. 2. Jupiter is a gas planet. And the personalities of Jupiter people are sometimes rather hollow. Warm and likable, yes, but full of hot air. 3. Jupiter spins very fast, symbolizing a tendency to follow fads and fashions, getting wildly enthusiastic about things and then losing interest. 4. Jupiter has 67 known moons, symbolizing a vast network of family, friends, school chums, business associates, and people you met at the race. 5. Some of the moons are big, some small, some fast, some slow, symbolizing Jupiter's ability to relate to all types of people, the rich, the poor, the ugly, the beautiful. Everyone is welcome on the caravan. You will sometimes encounter a Jupiter person. You will sometimes encounter a Jupiter person who is not warm, big, or a good networker, but who on the contrary is shy and withdrawn, and may even suffer from an inferiority complex. If this happens, you need to look for 2 things. 1, is Saturn also strong? Jupiter and Saturn don't get along, and when they're both in a Gauquelin zone, the person can feel conflicted. 2, what is the person's relationship to their mother? Every single screwed up Jupiter person I know, without exception, has a screwed up relationship with their mother. This is especially true with the females. Understand, however, that this doesn't happen often. Jupiter people are nearly always Jupiterian, which is to say they are warm, friendly, big picture people who are good at building networks. What is my advice? What are the 2 things that a Jupiter person needs to hear? 1, you are wonderful. What's more, other people see you as wonderful. And 2, you're not as wonderful as you think you are. That's it for now. This is Patrick Jerome saying, see you next time.